Made me. Intersex Rights 1296. In context. Focus. Intersex bodies and identities. Before, 1st century BC. Greek historian Diodorus Siculus describes corrective surgery taking place on cowl of Epidaurus, an intersex person. 440. St. Augustine describes hermaphrodites as monsters, but stresses that they have been created by God. After 1917, American geneticist Richard Goldsmith coins the term intersex to describe a range of bodily traits. 2003, the first Intersex Awareness Day is held on October 26 to draw attention to intersex voices and rights. 2015, Malta becomes the first country to ban non-consensual medical interventions on intersex children. The rights of intersex people, individuals with variations in their sex characteristics, including gonads, genitals, and chromosomes that do not fit the binary ideas of male and female, have exercised physicians and lawmakers since ancient times. While the existence of intersex people has long been widely acknowledged, most societies anxious to satisfy cultural and legal demands have compelled them to adopt either a female or male identity and adhere to it for life. By the 13th century, Italian and French surgeons have developed illustrated manuals to standardize the proper form of the body to help physicians decide the degree to which a person was masculine or feminine. In Chirurgia Magna, Great Surgery, published in 1296, Italian surgeon Lanfranco da Milano recommended corrective surgery of atypical genitalia to return bodies to their natural form. He advocated cauterizing the vagina of intersex people deemed to be male and amputating the added flesh in those considered to be female. This marked a turning point in the treatment of intersex people. Now, nor perfect boy nor perfect wench, neither and both they seem. Ovid, Roman poet, 43 BC to 17 CE. Ancient precedents. The earliest recorded debates about the nature and status of intersex people date from ancient Greece. Originally known as hermaphrodites, after the myth of Hermaphroditus, who had male and female sexual characteristics, intersex babies were often viewed as bad omens and sometimes sacrificed. At the same time, Greek minds attempted to explain their existence. The physician Hippocrates, 460 to 370 BC, is reported to have theorized that hermaphrodites existed in the center of a male-female spectrum. In the Symposium, circa 385 to 370 BC, the philosopher Plato, in the spirit of poetic myth-making to explain the fluidity of gender and sexual action, suggested that there were three original sexes, male andros, female guna, and androgynous androgynos. His pupil Aristotle hypothesized that hermaphrodites formed when twins of different sexes failed to develop separately and their genitalia emerged. He claimed that a true hermaphrodite did not exist. In Rome in the 2nd century AD, the Greek surgeon Galen supported Hippocrates' idea of a sex continuum but asserted that female genitals were inverted male genitals. In the picture above, a Roman fresco from Capua in the 3rd century AD depicts Hermaphroditus, who was born to Hermes and Aphrodite, and later emerged with the love-struck nymph Salmacis in a single body. Attitudes and expectations. Across much of the ancient world, people born with intersex variations were expected to conform to one sex, setting a precedent that persisted until the 20th century. In ancient China, for example, everyone was expected to express the gender, name, clothing, and familial and sexual relationships that aligned to either their male or female attributes. Anyone suspected of violating gender norms was reported to the authorities and forced to conform. Some civilizations differed. India, for example, has recognized a third gender called Hadris since ancient times. The Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, fiercely maintain a binary perspective. Not least because of their many laws based on gender, Judaism required people who are outwardly intersex to align with men, and Tuntan people with discernible genitalia to follow laws for men and women. The medieval church asserted that God made men and women for the sole purpose of procreating, which was allegedly threatened by genitalia that didn't fit binary ideas of gender. To avoid sodomy, procreative sexual acts, hermaphrodites were expected to choose a male or female identity according to their predominating sexual characteristics. Islam also acknowledged a range of sex categories, but Islamic laws needed to differentiate between men and women for purposes of inheritance, religious rituals, and many aspects of daily life. Muslim jurors attributed a provisional sex to anyone who didn't present femininely or masculinely, subjected to scrutiny. The causes of hermaphroditism set out by Hippocrates and Aristotle continued to be debated in Europe until the 17th century, but deciding the correct sex remained the main concern of physicians. They, along with midwives, were frequently called upon to examine atypical bodies in trials. The courts required practitioners to observe the body's outward appearance, perform physical examinations, and assess the maleness or femaleness of the sex organs in response to sensory stimuli. The judge would ultimately declare the patient male or female, a decision that could affect their livelihood and ascertain whether they had practiced sodomy by engaging in acts not in keeping with that sex, with that gender. If they had, they were generally condemned to death. Nonetheless, intersex people were sometimes exempted from charges of sodomy. In 1629, Thomasine Hall, who was serving in the English army in the American colonies, was summoned to the court to confirm their true identity. Hall, who had changed identities throughout their life, proclaimed I am both man and woman, which the court agreed was the case after examining Hall. In France, in 1601, Marie or Marie Lamassie was accused of sodomy after assuming a male identity and marrying a woman. Marie was sentenced to death for cross-dressing, sodomy, and other crimes after physicians declared them female. However, a physician named Jacques Duval probed Marin's body, appealed the judgment, and convinced the court that Marie was an actual hermaphrodite. In a first physical examination of English intersex person Thomasine Hall, who was working in the American colonies in the 1620s, determined that they were both male and female. I am both man and woman. Thomasine Hall. Herculine Barbon. Born in southwest France in 1838, Herculine Barbon was raised as a girl but developed masculine characteristics during puberty. As an adult, she became a headmistress and fell in love with a female teacher, but the love affair was ended when doctors discovered she had a small vagina, small penis, and testicles inside her body. After a court case to decide her sex, that Barbon described as a ridiculous inquisition, she was reclassified as a male. She fell into poverty. As a result, she fell into poverty and depression. Barbon died by suicide in 1868 at the age of 29, leaving memoirs beside her bed. In the 20th century, French philosopher Michel Foucault rediscovered Barbon's writings and published them with commentary in his 1978 book, Herculine Barbon. In 2005, in honor of Barbon's story, Canadian activist Wallace Lamame established Intersex Day of Remembrance or Intersex Solidarity Day on November 8th, Barbon's birthday, to highlight issues faced by intersex people. Art and medicine. Curiosity about the human body spread with the popularization of medical texts, such as French servant Ambroise Paré, 1573, De Monte et Protégé, Monsters and Marvels. The intersex body, a popular subject in the art of ancient Greece and Rome, appeared in Renaissance art as subjects of curiosity and erotic titillation. Flemish painter Jan Gossaer's The Metamorphosis of Hermaphrodite and Salmacis depicts Hermaphrodite as a young man resisting the embrace of the nymph Salmacis, while in the background two figures are shown united in one body. The life-size sleeping Hermaphroditus, a Roman statue that was resurrected in the 17th century by Italian artist Gian Lorenzo Bernini, who added a marble mattress and a pillow, and is startlingly forthright, combining a sensuous depiction of a body with curvy hips, breasts, and a phallus. When hermaphroditism was depicted in art and medical books, people struggled to make sense of it. They continued to ask how hermaphrodites should be categorized. In 1628, English judge Edward Coke issued legal treatises that acknowledged the existence of hermaphrodites but required them to live their lives according to one gender role. Surgical interventions. In the 18th century, theories concerning intersex people centered on the gonads, ovaries, and testes. Scientists and doctors argued that quote-unquote true sex was determined only by the presence of ovarian or testicular tissue in the body, and that a quote-unquote true hermaphrodite had both gonadal tissues. They argued that secondary characteristics that developed in puberty started to prove sex certainty. These included body hair, muscular build, and a deeper voice for males, breasts, wider hips, and menstrual cycles for females. Gender, how someone looked, behaved, and believed themselves to be was also considered. In the mid-20th century, Dr. John Money founded the world's first gender identity clinic in the United States. Under his guidance, surgeons began to correct bodies to fit into the sex and gender binaries. Surgery was generally performed in intersex infants with parental consent. Doctors would create a penis or vagina and then instruct the parents to raise their baby accordingly, often advise diagnosis and treatment their child had received. The approach proved problematic. Long-term damage often occurred, and children sometimes grew up identifying differently from their assigned sex. We are genetically deselected, selectively aborted, prenatally treated. Mauro Cabral Greenspan, Argentinian intersex and trans activist. Assertive action. By the late 20th century, intersex people around the world were beginning to challenge society's attitudes. Forming support groups, organizing conferences, and publishing newsletters, they demanded bodily autonomy, acceptance, legal recognition, and access to information, adequate medical care, and protection from discrimination. In 1996, American intersex activists Morgan Holmes and Max Bett led a landmark protest outside a medical conference in Boston, Massachusetts, to denounce non-consensual infant surgeries. The Hermaphrodites with Attitude demonstration had a huge impact on intersex recognition, leading to change in medical protocols, human rights protections, and to laws banning surgeries on children under 15 in many countries. Son of a bitch. I told this one. Okay. I was gonna get mad, but okay. Excuse my language. Intersex people continue to challenge outdated attitudes. As a group, they identify across the continuum, ranging from intersex to man, woman, non-binary, transgender, and many other identities. People with intersex bodies sometimes use descriptors that take in both intersex and transgender, such as the umbrella term two-spirit in the indigenous American communities. Equally, some intersex people do not identify as part of the LGBTQIA+ community. Despite advances, intersex children and adults are often still stigmatized. In order to protect people with intersex traits or status, communities continue to fight for informed medical care, counseling, and support. They demand equal access to public services and an end to discrimination in all areas of life, including work, education, and sports. To achieve these aims, it is essential that policymakers consult those affected when developing research and legislation that impact on their rights. What the fuck? Ugh. What the? Okay. Sorry. Activist Pigeon Paganus outside Chicago's Lurie Children's Hospital in this picture in 2018 calls for needless genital surgery on intersex infants to end. In 2020, the hospital ended most such surgery. The right to be X. In 22, at the age of 48, Australian intersex activist Alexander or Alex McFarlane applied for a new passport that recognized their intersex identity. When Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade claimed that its computer system will only allow it to record applicants as either male or female, McFarlane argued that this would run the risk of them committing fraud. After months of pressure, the department agreed to include an X option on passports for Australians whose birth certificate records their sex as indeterminate, as McFarlane's did. McFarlane is believed to have been the first Australian to be issued with such a birth certificate. In 2003, McFarlane also became the first person in Australia, and perhaps in the world, to have X as the gender marker printed on their passport.